Okay, many people have heard this term, sandwich generation, but I've heard some people I know haven't. And it's been going on for quite some time. As of 2012, over 50% of adults aged 40 to 59 were part of it. And what that means is they had parents that were at least 65 years old who they were helping financially or in some capacity, and also had kids who are 18 or older who they were also supporting financially or in some capacity. Ergo, the sandwich generation. Kind of a stressful place to be in the middle, right?
Right.
And that's kind of why we brought these wonderful guests here to help us navigate that place of being in the middle. And here we have the lovely Alana Goggin. She is a director of life care planning and a certified elder care coordinator. What possessed you to go in this route for your profession?
Well, I think it becomes a calling for you, and I think Rhea can agree. I don't think anybody wakes up one day and says, I'm going to be a director of life care planning. Most people don't even know what life care planning is.
And could you give us a little snippet as to what
Absolutely.
that is? Yeah.
So way back 15 years ago, I started with an elder law firm, and my background's legal, insurance, financial, and did Title 19 and Medicaid applications very well, but people weren't calling me about the paperwork. They were calling me about life changes, life happenings. So that's how I dipped into caring for them. And I was doing it subconsciously, not realizing it. And when I left the firm, I started to work for other firms doing the same sort of thing. And my businesses grew, my referrals grew, and before you know it, my thought was, why does everybody have to be backed into a corner? Why can't they have some sort of plan in place beforehand? So there grew life care planning for me.
Well, that sounds like a saving for people, like a
Exactly.
net, right?
Yeah.
It was a niche. You found a niche of a need.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, we have Miss Rhea Pattison, who you started your own business.
I did.
And can you tell us a little bit about you, what brought you to this field also, and what you have created?
Yes, so I created CT Health Advocate because I was tired of seeing caregivers burned out. And as a caregiver myself, professionally and personally, I decided to create a resource for people to provide them with support and the physical and emotional support that they need to transition their loved one.
Excellent. And I'm so excited to talk with the both of you. We have so much of wisdom and golden nuggets to share on Silver Linings Talk Show today. So we are so excited because this is a topic that affects so many people. There are 34.2 million adults in the U.S. that are caregivers. So this is a huge and important topic.
And many of them don't choose to be. They're kind of thrown into it,
Correct.
which
Right,
is like
because we know elderly
they don't plan on
lives longer.
doing that, so they
Right.
need your help.
Right, and what I see certainly in my work is people feeling stressed out, people feeling overwhelmed, and I kind of wanted to just talk about 6 tips that I felt were really important to not lose yourself as you are dealing with life demands and also caring for an elderly parent. So number 1 is boundaries around your time, because when you're the parent, you may have children that are under the age of 18. You may be taxiing everywhere. You may be involved in your own church organizations and school project organizations, family time, and then you still have those same demands of taking care of an elderly parent. 2 is access your support systems, and also, if need, access counseling. I've had numerous clients that come to me for this very reason of feeling that they are a part of the sandwich generation. 3, make it a family experience. So make sure you enlist your siblings, enlist aunts and uncles, and even people that we call family. because we can't do this on our own. It really does take a village. 4 is, if you can, it's so great to discuss the financial and life plannings ahead of time. Being able to have ideas of what that looks like. 5, take care of yourself. That self-care is so vitally important, and have fun. And number 6 is seek out professionals and organizations that can really help assist you, support you, help navigate through these new challenges and these changing times. And this is where we open up to our wonderful guests today, who are exactly just that. So let's kind of have you got your thoughts on like the tips and what you guys are seeing with your clients.
So I think you've hit many of what we might call pain points for our clients. And prior to us gathering here a few minutes ago, Rhea and I were chatting about, what it's like to support a client in crisis. And I think the most important thing that is for them to know that they also have support. So when Rhea steps in, they could take a breath and they could actually imagine themselves being supported. But prior to that, they thought that they were the only one in charge. And many of them almost all of them, except for maybe a few.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of doctors and nurses as well that will come to me and say, I'm not equipped to do this, because it's their loved one, right? So they can't really, they don't understand how to navigate it, most people. And those people that have some experience can't really see the forest through the trees because it's their loved one.
Right. There's such an emotional tie.
Yeah, so support, I think, is really important for everyone.
Yes.
And I think once they find support and they realize that they have someone like Rhea or myself to go to, they're not doing it alone. And maybe those 6 tips and tricks that you just offered might be more available to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I've seen success in individuals feeling empowered to really advocate for themselves and their loved ones. Once you give them the tools, they're like, oh, I can do this. And they're able to do it. It's really a great experience, just having the support and the guidance.
And I think one thing also is, and Rhea, I want you to kind of take the lead on this one, is 11 million Americans currently are being, caring for elderly parents with Alzheimer's or other dementias.
Yes.
And that is something that you work a lot with. So I would love to hear from you the importance, what you find is important in working with the families and all these wonderful tips and things that we have talked about already.
Yes. As a memory care nurse, I found that families found success when they stepped back and looked at what mom or dad wanted before the disease.
So they're elderly parents.
Yes.
Okay.
What mom and dad wanted before the Alzheimer's disease, and really putting that at the forefront of all the decisions that they make. For example, there was a patient who was struggling with finding something to do. They would wander the halls, so the daughter came in and offered a knitting quilt that she had. And the patients or the residents sat there for hours just knitting. And it was nostalgic to her. It was something that she could just focus her attention on. And the daughter, she would come in and she would cry and she would sit there and talk with her mom. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. So I think just getting back to basics and whatever this mom or dad needed previously before the diagnosis, bring that into the present day.
There is some truth behind, there's a regression,
Yeah.
correct? And, kind of like what they enjoyed in their childhood, they might enjoy as they go through this disease. So
Yes.
I love that. That really brings a true familial love
Yes.
to the situation.
And I've heard of many, especially the elderly women, really loving even having a baby doll. because it kind of taps them back into the nurturing side of them, where they focus on this baby doll, and it's really a beautiful thing, and they care for it and everything. It's beautiful. But I also love something you talked about, and it was about the importance of the communication, but the empathy.
Yes. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about that in your experience?
Yes. The lack of empathy really causes a shutdown in communication. And communication is so important when you are caring for an aging parent. Especially, you have to trust your relationship with the providers. You have to trust your relationship with yourself. And most importantly, you have to trust your relationship with your loved one. So having empathy and knowing that everyone struggles and asking for help and asking for the support, I really think is the key component to the caregiver's success.
Well, I think when you just brought communication and empathy in, I think, Elena, when talk about that when you're talking about the dynamic of having to bring all the pieces together.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, okay, here's a new patient, but there's this player and that player and this family member, that family member.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Well, I'm sure it's not easy.
Yeah, I don't know that it's not as challenging it is in my own family, right?
Oh, sure.
Right. So, and you would probably agree, right? I think that Rhea makes a good point. Empathy, and they don't really know how to engage that piece, because oftentimes they tend to be a little embarrassed, or they're trying to protect their loved one and insulate them, and they don't realize by doing that they're causing probably more harm than good.
Yeah.
So when they understand that, we all understand this, and I love when I mention, we're not in control here. And when they look at you, and I'm like, and you have to get comfortable with not being in control, that kind of like deflates them a little bit, not in a terrible way, but almost like they take a step back and they're like, okay, so what can we control? And I'm like, let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important for them to know they're trying to control a situation, many situations, that they don't have control over. They don't have control over what assets their parents have left or what income they're working with. They don't have control over this awful disease that takes their parent away from them.
Yeah.
And I think you can attest to this too. And I'm very lucky and fortunate that most of my clients are tripping over themselves trying to help their loved one.
Yes.
And all they're looking for is, okay, just line us up a little bit. And once you can provide them with the steps to start with, and obviously people come first, so let's talk about what the urgent matter at hand is. And once you start to compartmentalize or decompartmentalize the big problem that they all have, and then start chipping away at it little by little. And once they know that you have a plan and they're with you and we're now kind of locked arms, they're no longer feeling unsupported and they're no longer feeling disorganized. And I think they can also start working together as a family again. And most of it is just letting go of the piece of control. They feel like they have to be doing something, and oftentimes just loving on their person in a different way is all they have to do.
Yeah, and something that came up for me that I was thinking when you mentioned that too, about kind of isolating. Sometimes people do that because I'm also thinking that if I am open to the reality of what's really happening, it's too emotional.
Yeah.
Like if I believe that, oh my goodness, my parent is at this stage.
Yeah.
And that's where we try to maybe hide it or insulate it so others don't notice, because then we may not have to deal with the emotion of it.
That's a very good point. I often say to my family members when they come in, and I think Rhea would agree, that when you have a very close relationship with your loved one, I call it like a symbiotic relationship. Oftentimes that dementia really isn't coming out when we're having conversations with our loved one, because we can almost complete their sentence, right? Yeah. Have you ever gone for a cup of coffee and your husband's coming across and he's already got one in his hand for you? happens to me every morning, so I'm bragging on him a little bit. But I'm like, I really would love a cup of coffee while I'm on the phone with somebody, and there it comes, you know. It's kind of like us talking to our elder loved ones who are struggling with cognitive challenges. We have that symbiotic relationship, so we often don't notice until an outsider coming in notices. So you can't really see them objectively. And that's a blessing to have when you have a close-knit family, right? It's a blessing.
Yeah, it's a blessing, but it's also a curse
I
in
knew
a
you
way.
were gonna say that.
Because it's kind of hiding.
Agreed.
And it's putting a veil over the problem a little bit, and in a sense, you're a little bit in denial.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and that's, I guess, maybe what happens because you're under pressure, and because you're also taking care of someone who, you know, you're wanting to become something special in your child, and it's hard to deal with. So I love the way you put that,
And I
though.
think, Elena, you make a great point with the control, letting go of control, trying to, I know, and I'm sure you can agree, some of my clients, the biggest issue is letting go of the control of needing to do everything and needing to, you know, have constant reminders. It's just let the people who are the professionals, such as the nurses and the doctors, advocate, communicate what you need and what your loved one needs, and then let go of control.
Yeah.
Wow.
Takes a lot of pressure off of them.
So that's kind of a boundary, right? So that's what was number one on Dina's list.
that's great.
Is there something else on your list that we haven't touched on that we should? Because that's probably the biggest one. And it's probably maybe one of the hardest ones for the people who are in the middle to deal with, to release.
I think one that comes up a lot also for clients is about making it a family experience, and that's why I chose that as one of the tips that I think is really important, is because very often people may say, well, I've got X number of siblings, but I'm the one doing it all. And then there comes a point in time where they may decide, you know, through their own feelings of being overwhelmed, is that I can't take this on, I can't do this all by myself. And then they start possibly delegating to others. And I wanted to kind of ask if there were any experiences or thoughts or tips for maybe some of those families that are going through those experiences where one feels I'm carrying the burden of so much.
Yeah. Oftentimes it is one or two that are doing that. And sometimes when I've gotten phone calls from, you know, I mean, we have 7 of us. We have to make a decision. It's going to take us a long time. And I'm like, well, take all the time that you need, and time is of the essence. So getting families to work together in this sort of realm is a bit challenging. There are a few people that will take the control over one piece or another. And I find that once you get everybody kind of around a conference room table or in a Zoom call, oftentimes they do want to help. Others want to help, and they're willing to help, and they could take over certain pieces. They just thought their person that was handling it had it all under control, and it was no big deal. Because that person makes it look kind of easy for all the rest of them. And they're like, well, we couldn't possibly do as good of a job as Susie's doing. So, and then Susie's like, I don't mind the help. So oftentimes it's just having a conversation and letting the family know these are the things. Once they start to recognize that there are other things that this family member's actually handling, or there are decisions to be made, or there's support, I find that, again, I kind of think I'm fortunate, I bet you are. Most of our family members are tripping over ourselves. They just need a little help and guidance to kind of put them in the right kind of area. And oftentimes the one person who's had it all is like relieved. And I hate to bring it back to our support, but I do feel like there is the 1 or 2 people that really just need the support, and once they get that support, they're able to funnel that information to their siblings in a way that is supportive, and the siblings then can pick up other pieces. So I still find that working with one or two family members is actually critical for my clients, because they usually will count on the one, and then looping the rest in with education and having them do something in the background to support their sibling as well as their parents is kind of key.
Yeah.
So probably education and just opening up the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also liked how we previously talked about helping each sibling kind of taking on a task that goes along with their strengths.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
some strength may be someone loves grocery shopping.
Yes.
Maybe someone's strength is, you know, they are a whiz at talking with people on the phone.
Yeah.
You know, it's also kind of dividing based on strengths.
Yeah. It's a really good point. I think they figure that out, and having the conversation about what does caregiver support look like. You know, I think even the child that is taking the heavy load hasn't realized, to your point, that they were doing it all along. All of a sudden they woke up and they're like, oh, I'm no longer really my parents' daughter or son. I happen to be all these other things. And so when you open the door for a conversation with the other siblings, they can then say, well, let me help with that, to your point, and let me help with this. And I'm happy to do the grocery shopping, and how about if I take over the lawn mowing, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or even just sitting for their parent and giving the main caregiver, I know this is hitting
Yes.
the pain point for you.
Yes.
You know, just somebody coming in and taking a shift, right?
That's it.
Yep,
Finding respite care in the community.
yep. That's a
sure.
huge
Yeah,
benefit.
Sure.
Respite care.
So those are some really great tips. You know, the support. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are support groups for caregivers as well.
There is. I run a support group.
Of course you do.
Yes, I do. Caregivers Secret Garden. And we really just empower each other. I'm a professional and personal caregiver, so I understand what they're going through. So through our past, present, and future experiences, we come together and we troubleshoot and have
That's a
girl
great
time.
resource
It's
for you.
nice.
Even just having a
Yes.
conversation like this right now, I
Yeah.
feel as though just having conversations, there are so many people in the same boat who just need a tip as to where to turn to,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
ideas as to how do I get my brother-in-law involved, or how do I what do I do? You guys have given us so many great ideas. I think we could always use some more of that.
Yeah, and how about any other thoughts of resources for viewers who are watching and maybe find themselves in this place?
Yeah, good point. So I would actually definitely refer people to a caregiver support group. I think that many are thinking that they don't need it, but once they start to share an experience, I think that is most important. I also think that not waiting, people will wait, and Rhea and I were just having a conversation earlier about what does proactive planning look like, or just a conversation, not waiting. So starting earlier to have the conversation. Many of the children of my clients will say, will you have this conversation with me, which is how proactive life care planning started, so I don't end up in this crisis situation beforehand.
Yeah.
So me not having my kids in a situation where they're
Exactly.
having to worry
Yes.
about me.
Having the
Oh,
conversation.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like
That
that.
thought.
Right? Empowering them. The Area Agency on Aging is a really wonderful support. They offer a plethora of resources.
Is that nationwide?
Yes, it is. It's nationwide. And in this shoreline area, it's kind of split in half. So the Area Agency on Aging in New Haven is a great resource for people in this area down through New Haven and up. And then Senior Resources is another area agency on aging, and they serve kind of over the Old Saybrook Bridge and beyond into Mystic and up. So both great resources.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
The local senior centers is also a great resource as well.
And I was thinking about maybe that even would be a good resource for that respite time.
Yes.
Where your elderly parent who cognitively can go and play cards and have time with friends and have still their own social outlets.
Right.
Where then, you know, you as the caregiver could also have your time to do whatever you want for maybe those couple of hours.
Absolutely.
And several-
That's a good one.
Yes, several senior living communities offer respite care.
Yes.
So you can reach
That would
out
be
to.
a really good choice.
Yeah, to start there.
Yep. Yep.
See what the
Adult
options
day
are.
centers. I'm going to throw out, you know, there's one, Mind Matters in Old Saybrook, and they're great for just some respite care during the week. Couple of hours. They can go for the day or a half day, a couple days a week or more. I think that's a really wise choice. And senior centers, I think they have to be accompanied by somebody who is more of a caregiver. So they shouldn't go on their own by themselves. Yeah, it's typically not advisable.
Oh.
Yeah. Great
thought.
resource. Great thought. Great thought.
You can always hire a home health aide
To take them.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love that idea because they're going on an outing to the
Right.
senior center. So they're having lunch, they're playing some games with a friend.
With a friend.
With a friend. So it is a great resource, but they
Yes.
shouldn't go by themselves.
So we have 1 minute left to our time, and I just wanted to get any last thought or tip before we wrap up today.
I'm going to say don't wait. Like if there's at all a question, or if you're thinking, or if you're a proactive senior and you're wondering what the next steps are, don't wait. But if you're taking care of a loved one, and although you might have it today, maybe tomorrow you might need a little bit of a break. So I would say don't wait.
Don't wait.
Yeah.
Excellent.
My tip is to be empathetic to yourself. Be kind, be patient. It's not your realm, it's not your world. Caregiving is oftentimes thrown upon you. So just be kind, be patient, and seek help.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining us today. We've
Thank you. for
really
having me.
enjoyed having you, and it's
Yeah, such an important conversation.
Yes.
And like I said, you guys gave beautiful wisdom and golden nuggets and all kinds of wonderful things. And you guys are providing some silver linings for people when they feel like there's heaviness. So thank you both for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for all the work that you do, spreading the word out to others.
Thank you.